introduce you to Dr. Bobby Jermaine Price.
Dog did good. When Miss Day called me and asked me to come here to speak, I was thinking like, man, I hadn't come back to Tifton in a long time to speak, but it just made me go down sort of memory lane of being here. I left here in '98, and I really never returned since then, only to see my family and, make sure they're good. And it's been God has blessed me.
Amen.
And so I'll tell you a little bit about that journey as we go through this, but I really think it's important for me to speak to the youth and also speak to your hearts, because a lot of times when you're coming from a small town like this, you don't know what's possible for you. And people ask me all the time, how did I achieve a lot of the things that I've been able to achieve? Is because I had a big imagination.
All right.
And I never stopped dreaming.
All right.
Once we become adults and start adulting, we stop dreaming. And it's easy for us to do that because, you get kids in the picture, and you got bills, and you have this whole thought process about what you should and shouldn't be doing. And one of the things I thought about in coming back here, because it was Black History Month, was the importance of tribalism. And I want to say to you, I love you. And I have family here, so they know that I'm talking to them, but I'm saying as part of being a part of my tribe, I love you. And a lot of what I've done and wanted to accomplish in my life has been because I wanted to impact people. I wanted to show people what was possible. And so when I look back on my journey and I think about all of the things, and I'll tell you a little bit about my story in just a moment, because I think that's how we as Black people learn. We learn through story. I think about all of those hard times and those struggle moments that I went through that really nobody really knows about. But you look back on time and you see all of those tracks that you had to trek through and all of those mountains you had to climb. And you're looking at that path, and some parts of it is 2 footprints and some parts of it is just 1. And, God carried me a lot. Especially leaving here and not having the support of my family. As you see, this is how my family is. They show up.
Amen.
And, that's easy to stay in contact with, to not want to leave that when you have that type of support. But it's also scary to look back on life and realize what you didn't realize for your life. And so one of the things that I'm always teaching people is the importance of, look at life like you are a ship.
All right.
And the reason why I say look at it like you are a ship, because every ship has an anchor, and our anchor in life is God.
That's it. All right.
And sometimes that anchor is inside of you, and God wants you to go about your way and do your thing. He lets you go, gives you free will. But sometimes you got to drop that anchor.
All right.
Because it's time to slow down. And so I've used that analogy in my life in understanding that God is in me, and so I'm not alone. And so that's one thing that helped me allow to kind of leave Tifton and experience life in its fullness. The other thing that's really important when it comes to a ship is you have to have a captain. Somebody's got to be steering the ship for you, because if you don't know where you're going, then anywhere will do.
All right.
And I truly believe that our captain in life is our meaning. You have to find purpose in life. And one of the things that I've distinguished in terms of figuring out what my purpose was, because we spend most of our life trying to figure that out, and then we spend the other half of our life trying to live it out. And how I distinguish it is you have a job and then you have your work.
All right.
And your job is what you interview for. Your job is what you get hired to do. Your job is what you clock in for. Your job is something that you can be fired from. But your work is what God gives you.
All right. All right.
God gives you your work, and your work is your meaning and your purpose in life. And so when you clock out from your job, you still got work to do.
Amen.
And so all of my life, I've been spending my time trying to figure out what my work was. And each step of the way, you know, I felt like God was teaching me. So one of the things I wanted to share with you, it really touched my heart. And a lot of my experiences in life, I've sort of used life as like a teacher. And because I really feel like God creates a lot of our experiences, and that experience is our curriculum. And a lot of times when life is starting to happen to us, we get frustrated with it. We don't know what decisions to make. We get in decision paralysis. We make no decisions. And so I wanted to give you guys a few things that I use in life, especially with things that are prone to kind of keep you stuck. One of the things that I learned is anger teaches you forgiveness.
All right. All right.
You know, when I was young, as Johnny stated, I use anger pretty often. And, you know, I went to Matt Wilson, and there was a fight every day after school. And so going out that front door, whether you was part of that fight or not, you was going to get some entertainment. And throughout my life, you know, I experienced a lot of anger on me too. And one of the biggest lessons I learned, it was my sophomore year of college, was I was meaner than everybody in college, and I played basketball there. And I had a friend one day. He, I guess I might have beat somebody up. I'm not gonna deny it or not. But I might have got into some sort of altercation with somebody, and he came up to me and he said, "You have to be careful. You are different." And I didn't know what he meant. And he was like, "Everybody hasn't gone through what you've gone through. They don't live by the same rules. And so when you beat somebody up, they're going to call the police." And that was the first time in my mind, because I grew up in the projects, that was the first time in my mind, I'm like, wait, they don't live by my rules? They don't live by my philosophy? And that was the first time I had to understand not to use my anger, you know, and understand when somebody talks to me in a way that I grew up understanding as disrespect, and where I grew up, disrespect was, oh, you want to fight? But I had to learn that forgiveness.
All right.
I had to
All
learn
right.
how to forgive people who didn't know how I lived life.
All right.
You know?
All right.
So in life, when you're being taught, it's important to understand that these, especially when it's reoccurring, when things are happening over and over and over, God is trying to teach you something.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so if anger is your trigger and it's happening over and over, God is trying to teach you forgiveness.
Yes.
Okay? Another thing that's really important is hate. If you live in hate and your heart, hate resides in your heart, God is trying to teach you love.
All right.
All right.
All right.
You know? And he's trying to teach that other person compassion for somebody
Come on,
who
brother.
demonstrates
Come on.
hate. It's really important to understand that life is always trying to teach us. So if that hate lives in your heart and you're seeing it demonstrated and acted out in your life, you're supposed to be learning love.
Yeah.
Okay? Another thing that's really important is a lot of us get irritated and annoyed a lot. Right? And when you're being irritated and getting annoyed a lot, and like I do in traffic, God is trying to teach you patience.
All right. All right.
You know, so if you have somebody in your life that they're always annoying you, irritating you, I mean, this how they eat, the sound they make when they talk, God is trying to teach you patience.
All right.
Okay? Another thing that's really important, and this is really important especially for us in the black community. I grew up in the late 80s and 90s during the drug era where there was a lot of violence, and a lot of us got ripped from our homes. A lot of our fathers got ripped from our homes. A lot of our loved ones got ripped from our home. And a lot of us felt abandoned as a result of that. And a lot of us haven't gotten over that abandonment. And so that abandonment is literally acting out in our life. It's playing out in our life. And we can't understand why when we get in relationships, whether it's a relationship to evolve into marriage or a relationship to evolve into friendship, we can't understand why when we get in these relationships and things start going good, we get scared.
All right.
Say that now.
Because we instantly start to think about being abandoned by somebody we love.
All right.
And so when we are feeling like we're in that space, it's important for us to know that abandonment is teaching us to stand on our own 2 feet.
Come on.
Because many of us were abandoned by our fathers or our mothers or, somebody we love, but that is teaching you how to stand and be on your own 2 feet.
All right.
And that is important too. That's just as important as the love that person would have gave you.
All right.
God wants you to be self-sustainable, but he also wants us to be together.
Yeah.
Another thing that's really important is that when you feel out of control and you feel like there's no power in your life, God is actually teaching you how to let go.
Come on.
All right.
Come on.
God teaches us how to let go because we hold on and attach ourselves to things that aren't healthy.
Come on.
Say that. Say that.
And whether that be hate,
Come on.
whether that be a person,
Come
that
on.
we should not be attached
Come
to,
on.
whether that be a certain type of thinking or belief, we have to see that lesson that God in life is trying to give us. So that's really important for us to understand that as well. And if you live in constant fear, whenever you live in constant fear, God is trying to teach you courage.
Come on.
Uh-huh.
Johnny was saying it earlier. It's important for us to know, in life, it's okay to have fear. What's not okay is to let that fear overcome you.
All right. All right.
Us as black people, we see every day what happens, when somebody gets pulled over by a cop car. That our experience is very different from anybody else's in America. When we get pulled over, even before we even get pulled over, how we feel when a cop car is behind us and that doesn't even pull over is a totally different experience.
All right.
Right.
And so it's important for us to know and understand that when we as black people live in fear, what that does to our bodies. One of the things that I was teaching people when I did this interview on Fox, and one of the things I was telling her was, she was asking me, what can we do for our immune system, to build up our immune system? I was like, well, one of the things that paralyzes our immune system is stress and fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important for us to live in faith. in those
There you go.
to live in faith and be diligent in doing the right things for our bodies.
Yeah.
And I just think as a people, that's one of our biggest struggles. If we're not able to achieve the excellence that we've demonstrated throughout history, the reason why we're not now is because we're in a state of fear so much. And so we have to get programs, thought processes, support in place to live out of fear and to live more in faith. Okay? And then the last thing that I'll say that is really important in terms of some of the life lessons that I learned is, anything you can't control and you want to control is because you're not willing to let it go.
That's right. Say that.
One of the biggest sort of lessons I learned in life is surrendering.
Come on. Come on. Come on.
We use these analogies like fight cancer, fight violence, but the truth of the matter is that most of what we need to do accomplish what we need to accomplish is letting go of the old thinking,
Come on.
the old belief systems.
Come on.
Instead of us being we're now in our communities, we're more segregated in our own communities.
Come on.
than
Come
we've
on.
ever been.
Come on.
Especially when you think in terms of how our families were, how close we were 20 years ago.
Come on.
As compared to how close we are today.
Come on.
It's very different. And so because of that, a lot of that is because we're not willing to surrender these new ways of thinking that we've applied to ourselves.
All right.
A lot of times, one of my favorite movies is the movie The Matrix.
Okay.
And one of the parts of the movie, he offers Neo who is the chosen one, a red pill and a blue pill. Now, the blue pill is essentially, you take this blue pill, you go and live your life the way you currently live it. You eat food that is synthetic, you listen to music that is violent, you live in a way that's unconnected with other people, you don't tell people you love them, whatever it may be. That's the blue pill style of living. The red pill is you go down this rabbit hole and you're gonna see nothing but truth.
All right.
And a lot of us choose the blue pill because the truth is too hard to
Come on, brother.
And so we have to make sure that we wake up every day and tell ourselves the truth about ourselves.
Yeah.
We're very quick as a community to tell each other the truth about each other.
Come on, come on.
But we won't tell each other the truth about ourselves.
Tell them, brother.
When you're hurt, say you're hurt.
All right.
Because guess what? Hurt people hurt people.
Come on.
It just works out like
Come
that.
on.
And so it's important for us to start living in our truth so we can live in our excellence. So
Yeah.
let me tell you, I've given you some of the life lessons I've sort of learned throughout my journey. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my life so that Johnny gave you all the good stuff about me. Now I'm going to tell you the stuff that wasn't so good, because a lot of times we do that. We have speakers come up, they tell us in the bio, there's nothing bad in there. There's only good stuff. So I'm going to tell you about my life, especially for the kids, because here's the thing, you're going to make mistakes.
All right.
You're supposed to. Your parents made mistakes too. They're not going to tell you about them. They made them. Okay? And so what's important is you're going to make mistakes, but what's important is how you respond to those things. All right? And so, as he said, I met him in 6th grade. In 7th grade, I got suspended for almost 10 months. Do you remember that month? They suspended me for 10 months. I was standing outside, and as he said, I was pretty big. I was about 6 foot, 180 pounds in 7th grade. So I wasn't a small kid. And as I told you before, at my school, there's a butt whooping every day. Sometimes in the front, sometimes in the class. And so that was the environment that we grew up in. And so I'm standing outside at recess, just talking, and my teacher came to grab my arm to bring me in, but you gotta remember the environment I live in. And if you think things were bad at school, they were just as bad in my neighborhood. Fights happen all the time. I came home with bloody noses all the time. Or I hit it, So when she grabbed my arm, it felt like somebody was grabbing me to fight. So when she grabbed me, I snatched my arm because I thought somebody was grabbing me. It scared the living daylights out of this teacher. It scared her so much that they suspended me for 8 months. So I had to go to in-school suspension for 8 months. And when I got ready to come back to school, the only way I could come back to school was to have this mediation between the principal, her, and her husband. And as they're telling me the therapy that she's gone through and how scared she's been, the husband says to me, if you were a grown man, I would have whooped your butt. Right there in front of the principal. Now, in my mind, I was thinking, if this principal wasn't here, these things were surgical back then. But you want to know why I didn't say anything? I didn't say anything because I realized that I was not in the position to
Come on,
win.
come on,
I was not in there was no win for me.
come on.
And so I said nothing. I let them have their therapy with me, and they let me back in school. That was the first time I learned that, what it means to be a black man. If that were a white kid, it would have been a totally different thing. And I don't know that theoretically. I know that through experience, because I had a friend, Bo, who did the same thing. And the response was totally different. So I understood what it was like to be a black man in the 7th grade. The next year, in 8th grade, as a result of me being a bad kid, I went to school for the first day and they put me in remedial class. Now, I was always a smart kid. I always got A's and B's. And now there's kids at school who you never see. They come to school, but you never see them. And now I was in the class and I see them. And I'm like, what am I doing in the class with these guys? Now, that was really important. Because most kids don't ask themselves that kind of question. They accept where they are.
Come on.
But I said, no. So I'm in the 8th grade, and we have a problem in the book. And she said, open your book up, read the problem. If Sally has 5 C-cells and Johnny has 9, how much do they have together? I'm like, this is simple math in 8th grade. Something is wrong. Now I know something is wrong. So I raised my hand. And in my ignorance, I said, am I in the retarded class now? She thought I was making a joke. But I was trying to understand it. I just couldn't articulate it in the right way. So she didn't answer me, so I asked again. I said, I really need to know. I'm pretty smart. And she said, if you disrupt the class again, I'm going to send you to the office. I said, I'm just going to go. Because I need to talk to the principal. They put me in the wrong class. I went to the office. He tried to talk me back into going to class, and I said I won't. My mom came up there. Do you remember that, Mom? My mom came up there because I asked him, I said, I'm not going back, so what are we going to do? He said, the only way that you can get out of the class is to have your mom sign off for it. I called my mom up there. This is 8th grade. When she signed off for the class, he took me to an AP math class. So I went from adding C-cells to now he has me doing algebra. He put me in a position to fail. He wanted me back in that class. And the teacher, when we walked to the class, she sees me and goes, wait, he doesn't look familiar. So she said, well, let's go outside and talk. This is interrupting the class. We go outside to talk, and she says, have you taken pre-algebra? Now this makes sense because this is an algebra class. I said, no ma'am, I have not taken pre-algebra. She looks at him like, he's like, well, all the other classes are full. And she says to me, are you going to be any problems? I said, I promise I won't. I'll sit in the front. Now, at the end of the class, I made an A in the class. But here's the thing, though. After the class, she came to me and said, I want to be honest with you. The principal put you in here to fail.
All right.
I don't know why, but he put you in here to fail. But you need to know, people are going to do this to you again.
Come on, brother.
And it's important for our kids to know, because our parents aren't going to always be there.
All right. All
You
right.
have to be prepared to fight what God said you should have
Come on,
versus what society is telling you is for you.
Amen.
Because every day they're trying to take away what we are deserved to have. When I was in the 10th grade, I had a son at 15. Again, I told you I'm going to tell you all of the good stuff. He told you all the good stuff. I'm going to tell you what's real. I had a son when I was 15 years old. I didn't care anything about anything but basketball. But I was an athlete, doing what I wasn't supposed to be doing, and got a girl pregnant. I saw my whole entire life flash upon me. Because I wanted nothing more but to play basketball, go to school, and get out of Tipton. And so now I have jeopardized everything. And I had 2 choices. I could either stop playing basketball and get a job, or get a job and keep playing basketball. Those are the only 2 choices I had. That's it. But I put myself in a bad position. And I realized that after it happened, but I realized I put myself in a bad position. And now I could either deal with the consequences of what happened, or I can recoil and figure out, all right, that life you dreamed of is over. And so I decided for myself, nope, it's not over. I gotta work harder now.
All right.
And it's important for our youth and even us as adults to know that when we make mistakes in life, that is not our life being over.
All right.
When we make mistakes, we have to learn from them and then we have to adapt. And that's what I've tried to do throughout my life. Next incident, I'm just giving you who I am.
Take your time. Take your time.
I moved to New York because I was going to medical school there. And things didn't work out and I missed my son. And so I decided that I was going to try to get into pharmacy school back in Atlanta so I could be closer to my son. I moved back to Atlanta. And when I moved back, I didn't have a job, so money ran out pretty quickly. Now, Johnny doesn't know this story, but I'm about to tell it to him. When I moved back to Atlanta, I ran out of money so quickly. It was during the 2004 where gas prices was like $5 a gallon. And I had an expedition. It was like this, it cost $70 to fill it up. And so as I'm running through this money, I moved back with a friend. I was staying on his couch and he came in one night and he was like, well, you know, I'm moving in with my girlfriend, so he got about a week to figure out what she's gonna do. Now this is in the middle of winter. And so I don't know what I'm gonna do. I ain't got no job. Because I had 2 degrees. And that said to me, like, life, you owe me a job. Wasn't true, but that's what I believe. And so I ended up sleeping in my car for 3 months in the winter.
All right.
You know what changed that? He called me one weekend. He said, hey, what you doing this weekend? I said, nothing. He's like, I'm gonna come up, I'm gonna stay with you. I said, all right. I was like, yeah, I ain't got no room for that. I was like, I'm looking for an apartment right now. He's like, oh, well, you should stay with our cousin Travis. He got an extra room. I put $10 in my car, which put like 1 gallon in the car. Drove to Jonesboro, Georgia, and proceeded to look at the room as if I had somewhere else to stay.
Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on.
And when he told me it was cool, I stayed there. I went outside of my truck and I prayed for an hour.
All right.
And pretended like I had went to go get some stuff. And when my praying was done, I came back in the house and unloaded everything.
All right.
God humbled me.
Come on.
And I needed to be humble because I thought people owed me something. Nobody owed me anything.
All right.
Not the white person who tried to insult me by having me solve a chemistry problem that was for a first-year student. Nobody owed me anything. And that humbled me enough to say, no, if nobody owes me, then it's just me and God.
All right.
And I'm cool with that.
All right.
That's a good teammate, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Indeed. And so as I began to come out of pharmacy school, I don't know if my mom remembered this, but I got diagnosed with high blood pressure when I was 16. You know, I was an athlete. I only had like 5% body fat, but I got diagnosed during a routine. You get that health exam before you can play sports. Yeah, I got diagnosed then. But what I didn't realize, and this is like recently, it might be 3 or 4 years ago, what I realized was it wasn't that I was unhealthy, I was heartbroken. I had lost my cousin who got killed. You know, I had lost my best friend who killed somebody with a bat. I lost all of my grandparents. You know, I was heartbroken. And a lot of times we don't understand that when we're unhealthy and we're suffering, a lot of times it's not just physical. Sometimes it's emotional and spiritual.
All right.
You know, and I realized that because, you know, nothing I did worked. And I was a pretty good pharmacist. You know, 2 years out of pharmacy school, I got an award for being the most innovative pharmacist in Georgia. And I still couldn't heal myself. You know, and so I went on this journey. I said, okay, this has to be done naturally. Like I'm sure I can do this. And And I said, if God done did all this other stuff for me, surely he can do something with this too. And I tried everything. I mean, my mom, and I'll take my mom against anybody's mom here in Tifton. She the best cook in Tifton.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
Best cook in Tifton. I put money on it.
Sure enough.
Now, and I'm my mom's first son. So she cooked for me like I'm her husband. Whenever I come home, she said, "What you want to eat?" So just giving you a little background. So when I got ready to change my diet, that didn't sound too good. That did not sound good at all. But I realized that all my grandparents died by the time I was in the 10th grade. You know, my grandmother died when she was my mother's age. But here's the caveat to that. My great-grandmother died when she was 105. So I asked myself, what is the difference between the two? Then I thought about where my great-grandmother lived and how she grew up. She had an outhouse.
All right, yep.
All right.
She had food around the land. I'm sure she did not go to the grocery store that much. So she was eating natural food. She was not eating out of a box, bag, can, jar. And my grandmother at 102, 103, she was still very coherent. She had no dementia, none of that stuff. It was a huge difference between the two lifestyles. Now, I love my grandmother cooking. If she came back, I have not eaten meat or dairy or any of that stuff in over 10 years. If she came back, I eat it. Because I love her. And I miss her. But what I'm telling you is, I know that there was a difference between the two. And when I figured that out, I said, well, let me eat like my great-grandmother would have eaten. And in 1950 and before that, there were no refrigerators. They didn't become popular until the late 50s and the early 60s. Which means that you got to eat your food fresh. There were no supermarkets. You had to go get meat from a butcher. And it was expensive. So mostly black people ate meat on Sundays. That's it. That was the day
That's
to
right.
do something
That's
special.
right. That's right.
But Monday through Saturday, we was eating plant-based. I said, so let me eat like my great-grandmother did. And in 1 month, I lost like 21 pounds. And in 2 months, I lost 45 pounds. When I came home, my family thought I was sick. I'm like, damn, what, you lost all that weight? You okay? But I had gotten so healthy so quick, it looked like I may have been sick.
All right. All right.
You know, because that's what happens sometimes when people get sick. And that was one of the biggest lessons that changed how I even practice medicine. You know, I may have gotten that award for being the most innovative pharmacist, but now I had it up in the air. I'm like, okay, so God done showed me this, because I don't know how many people have that same situation where they got the great-grandmother who lived to 105, and then got a grandmother who didn't live to 105, and they don't get those downloads from a divine place. But I got it. Now I got to ask myself, are you going to listen to it? Are you going to listen to that intuition? And so as I started listening to it and saying, okay, I'm going to be obedient to it, let me see what happens, that's when everything changed in my life. That's when I ended up quitting my job, moving to Japan. I lived there for 4 years. And when I was living in Japan for 4 years, I learned the language. And when I would travel to Africa from Japan, what I would notice is a lot of the words are similar. Like in India, a lot of the words, in Nigeria, a lot of the words are similar. And so I started asking the local people, like, how are Japanese words and African words the same? And they were like, they come from us.
Okay.
And so I started investigating. You can look this up. Okinawans look very different than actual Japanese. As a matter of fact, some Okinawans have afros. Most people don't know that. And so now I'm discovering my heritage is deeper than what I knew it to be. And as I started traveling more and more, I started to discover more and more about how to heal the body. And it wasn't just about food, it wasn't just about, medicine. It was deeper than that. And so what I want to implore to you is that we have to return to our roots.
All right.
A lot of things got sold out. A lot of people don't know there's over 10,000 years of us as human beings using herbs to heal ourselves. Modern medicine is only about 100 years old. It started in 1906. That's it. And a lot of the modern medicines that we use today, they take derivatives from plants and make a synthetic version of it. That's all they do. And they have to do that because you can patent something that is synthetic. You can't patent an orange. You can't patent, broccoli. And so it's important for us to know the reason why my grandmother was living to 105, and you can go and look up a lot of interviews by African American slaves. When they're recording what their age is, they're saying, I'm 114, my brother's 110. But we've forgotten that. We've forgotten that because they wanted us to forget it. And it's important for us to know that. As a matter of fact, when slaves were coming over on ships, you want to know where cornrows come from? They would plait their hair up like that and put corn and okra in the plaits so that when they got over here, they would plant their food here. But we don't know our history. And because we don't know our history, we don't know how to go back to what worked for us. And there's always advancement, evolution. There's things that we improve upon. And I can tell you, diet is nothing that could be improved upon. My grandmother used to have a plum tree in the back of her yard that grows. How many people know anybody with any kind of fruit tree in their yard today? 2 people. It used to be common. Everybody had something in their yard.
That's right. That's
What
right.
happened? The ground's still the same. It still produced the same results. We traded it in. We swallowed the blue pill and did away with the red pill. But real food is divine food. That's God's food. Who in here has a Bible that can read Genesis 1 and 29 for me? Here, give me a handout once you have it. Genesis 1 and 29.
Genesis 1 and 29. And God said, See, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed, to you it shall be for food.
Now, I'm going to tell you what's so important about that statement. How many of you get watermelon with no seeds? Y'all probably hadn't seen a watermelon with seeds in a long time. How many of you get grapes with no seeds? You know what I'm saying? When the last time you seen grapes with seeds? It's the blue pill. They smoothed it in there, and we forgot the word. Every fruit bearing seed. It's like humans. We come from a seed. You remove the seed, there's no human. You see what I'm saying? And so we have to return back to our roots. That's where we were actually special. We were special in that we were so connected with nature. We were so connected with God in that too. So it's important for us to recognize all of our heritage, especially the parts that made us who we are. There's an African philosophy called Ubuntu. Ubuntu means I am because of you. It's talking about the interconnectedness of all of us.
All right.
I was in Africa one time, and this guy was telling me about his brother was stealing from him. And as he was telling me about it, I think he stole like a TV, and then he stole the couch out of the house. I said, well, brother, how's he getting in your house? He was like, he lived there. I said, well, why are you letting him live there? He's like, where else would he live?
Okay.
Now, when we say that, we like, yeah, on the street. But when he said that to me, that was the first time that I recognized that a human being was saying that despite who this person is, I love him. And the things that he are taking away from me are not that so important that I would put him on the street. That used to be who we were. That used to be who we were. You know, and I saw that demonstrated with my grandmother all the time. People would literally come off of the street, walk in the house because they smell food, and get a plate. I mean, I've witnessed her take something off of somebody's plate to make a plate for somebody, a family member. My mom the same way. I used to feed the homeless in Atlanta. I mean, I was feeding like 200 people. My mom would cook all the food. We used to be like that, but we're not like that anymore. And so it's so important for us to realign ourselves up with who we are. Not who we were, but who we are, because it's in us. A lot of our aggression, bitterness, comes from we're not able to be who we are. We are compassionate. We are loving. We are forgiving. But we feel like we can't be in that space anymore. And that's where all of this disconnectedness is coming from. I was in Peterson's project yesterday. Me and my mom were going down memory lane. And I was telling her, man, it was rough when we was over here. She's like, it's worse now. Now in my mind, I'm like, I don't think so. And I say that because, like, you know, when I grew up, people were always outside. And the later it got, the wilder it got. That's just the way we are, you know. And so that's why they say when the street light come on, you come home. You know, that is scary. Because before, it was lines, it was lanes that certain people didn't cross. But now the lines are blurred now. And a part of that is because we're so disconnected from each other. We don't see each other in each other. You know, we don't borrow sugar from each other anymore.
All right.
You understand? And so because of that, we're so disconnected.
All right.
We can't see hurt on somebody when we hurt them.
Come on.